So we're here talking now to TJ Dawson of 3D Theatricals in Anaheim, Orange County, California. TJ has had a varied background as a performer and a director, and now runs a production company out of Orange County, and is also dipping his toe into the world of developing new musicals. But TJ, let's start by talking about, tell us a little bit about your background and what brought you to 3D Theatricals, the creation of 3D Theatricals.
Yeah, so I, as you said, started out as a performer and was very, I had a great start to my career, and then as a character man, my body and my face were not necessarily matching up. And so I started to really become the callback king and get really, really close to something, and then not be able to, end up, booking it because I was too young or too old or whatever the case may be. So I really wanted to figure out where I could, dive into our industry, and I always had a passion for directing. And when I started directing, I really loved the fact that there was a piece of me in the entire show, and I really felt, such a, it just opened up a whole new world for me. And so I did that a lot, and then eventually, long story short, decided to start my own company. It was difficult for me to advance my directing career locally because I was the kid that grew up doing the equity shows at these places, and just wasn't, unfortunately being able to be taken seriously in at the larger level. And so I decided to kind of create a space where not only that we work with names that everybody knows and loves, and friends and colleagues of mine that I've grown up working with, but also being able to give the people like myself that didn't get that opportunity a chance to get exposure at this level as a director, choreographer, music director, stage manager, whatever that is. Being able to give people a shot, which has been great, because I've seen now these other directors, choreographers, and so on and so forth have gone on to work at these other companies and are experiencing a lot of success in their own careers. So my mission is working.
Yes, it certainly is. That's fantastic. So I know that at 3D Theatricals you produce nothing but musicals. They are from the standard repertoire, but you also have a penchant for finding shows that don't get done very often and reapproaching them with bringing your own personal twist to them. Can you talk a little bit about that, maybe specifically with some of the shows that you've done, and what you felt was perhaps missing from their original production that you could bring a new eye to?
Absolutely, it's a great question. Part of what we do, at least try to do once a season, is do a show that would be deemed actually a new work to our audience. When we did Parade or Sideshow as two examples, those shows might as well have been written yesterday to our subscriber base, to most of them, unlike musical theater nerds like myself who've listened to those albums, since they came out or what have you. So, we look at those shows often are shows that did not succeed for whatever reason on Broadway, and I think every show obviously has a different reason why they didn't succeed. Sometimes it's within the material itself, and then sometimes it's actually just in the approach or the casting or what have you. So, or it just was a wrong time for it on Broadway, the wrong season. There's a lot of different reasons. So with Sideshow as an example, we really felt that if cast well and if it had a really very specific through line that really kind of took the audience on a more unexpected journey, it gave it a little bit more weight. It's kind of hard to describe, but actually kind of sidestepping for a minute, something we really like to do, which we're doing right now, is taking a show like an old warhorse like Oklahoma and making it feel like a new work. And so that actually is almost more challenging, and we often like to do that. So we kind of approach most of our things, with few exceptions, like coming up next, Spamalot is going to be a really great production of the Spamalot everybody has seen. But with Oklahoma, you know, we really dug into the history, the dramaturgy on that show was, as I know, Elise, you're you know, an avid dramaturgy. Dramaturgist, is that a word? Dramaturgist?
I don't think, yes, that works.
So, you know, we dove into that, you know, just head first, and went into what the culture was like, the race relations were like, and also went back and found some interesting notes on what the author's original intent was for the show, because, you know, they were very ahead of their time, always writing about something socially important, and as their first one, has gotten so literally whitewashed over time, it literally has felt like a brand new show to people when they come to see it, as though they've never seen Oklahoma before, while still getting a little bit of, you know, the show that they know and love. It has taken on a whole different meaning, and you know, so that's kind of like what we like to do around here, just make things a little bit more socially relevant, and kind of bringing out the message within a show that often has been buried over time. So, yeah.
Yes, well, I've seen many of your productions, and I can certainly attest to how good a job you do of that. I haven't seen Oklahoma yet, but I would love to check it out, because I would be interested to see how you've rejuvenated that one, because I know you will have done so. Now you do pretty lavish productions at 3D Theatricals. The production values are extraordinary. You have big casts, you have gorgeous costumes, you have beautiful sets. You work really hard to make these fantastic productions for your audiences, and you also have 2 different venues that you work at. And recently, you moved one of your venues from to a more prestigious venue in Cerritos. How has that move been for you to the Cerritos Center?
You know, kind of astounding, because we were just for so long trying to make things work, you know what I mean, like where we were, and pushing that venue beyond its limits and boundaries, and really proud of what we were able to accomplish in a venue with a lot of limitations.
Yeah, the other venue was really pretty much just a glorified high school gymnasium, as opposed to a professional theater.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly right. And so and then no matter how good the work was, being on a high school campus and a high school auditorium, no matter how beautiful the architecture and historic the building, it still makes you feel like community theater, you know what I mean, that way. And there's nothing wrong with community theater at all. That's where I started, and there's amazing community theater happening. But when you're putting the kind of money that you are putting into these productions, you definitely want to be perceived, you know, in a more larger regional theater circuit that way. And so the move has not only done wonders for the audience's experience, but you just don't know what you're missing until you have it, I guess. The support from the city, the support from the staff at the venue, I mean, everything is just, which of course the support from the staff at the venue at Plummer was also amazing, but just overall the whole experience has been so drastically different and for the better. It has, been true, and we've also seen our financial numbers go the right way by almost half of what we need to do in a year just to close the gap in getting us running more in the black. And that was astounding to see that happen in a year. To get you know, almost halfway there is just a really encouraging.
It certainly
feeling.
is, especially in this economic climate. That's a real accomplishment you should be proud of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, TJ, you and I, even though we are not that far apart, because you're in Orange County and we're here in LA County,
But that's really like a plane ride away.
Yeah, it feels like that sometimes, especially when you're sitting on the 5 in traffic. But we met more or less in reality at the NAMPT Festival, the National Alliance for Musical Theater in in New York, because we both attend that in the fall. And I happened to hear some remarks you were making, and I sought you out, and we had a conversation about new works. And you made it very clear to me that you were actually quite interested in trying to find a way to bring new works to your audience and to be a part of the development of new works. And since then, you've gotten involved in the development of new works in sort of several different arenas, in licensing new shows, in getting involved with the writing of new shows. New Musicals Inc. spent a season bringing you a concert reading series of 3 different shows that we brought to your rehearsal hall for your audiences, to try and get your audiences used to the idea of new musicals. And of course, we've been working together on the new musical Invisible. That's a big spectrum of stuff, but I'd love for you to talk a little bit about all those different areas that you've been getting into in terms of developing new work.
Yeah, absolutely. So it has been a really, really exciting time and area of growth that we've needed to make and also continue to need to make. The reading series was awesome because you guys did for us, and just all of that was exposing our patrons to a real new work. You know what I mean? Not like something that we can present as a new work like a sideshow or parade, but I mean something that truly was being developed at the ground level. And that was so cool for them because it has engaged them in a different conversation. They feel a little bit more a part of it and invested in it, which has been really, really cool to see, and to hear like what they were gravitating towards and what was their favorite or not their favorite and why, and all that kind of stuff was really great because it started a much needed conversation with our audience. So the process of kind of where the different things that we've done and having the concerts and everything, but then Invisible kind of going on into that, which is something that we were more hands-on with the actual development of the show. It's something that NMI has been shepherding and developing for years now, right? It's been a couple of years.
Yes, three or 4 years. Yes, and then we brought it was one of the concert readings that we brought to you, and caught the imagination of your audience, definitely.
Yeah, it sure did, and to our team, it really was. It's such a fun piece, and so anyway, the almost more importantly, the authors came and were fans of our work, what we were doing in 3D, and so there's a trust that quickly developed between the authors and NMI and 3D.
And that would be, just to be clear, that would be David Hollingsworth, who wrote the book, and David Orrs, who wrote the lyrics and the music.
Yes, these two amazing gentlemen who are so incredibly gifted, and it was really a really cool process I had never been involved with before, to be able to sit down and table read something and give notes and have them come back with those adjustments, and then sit down and have another group of actors come in and read that version, and just continuing that process to then getting a full reading again in front of an audience with the latest version, and then getting to do a talk back afterwards with Elise and the two Davids and myself, and getting to hear from the audience, how they responded to it, people who had been to every incarnation of the show, who saw that one. That was really quite valuable to hear what they took away from that. And it's been great just trying to get on a road to finally producing a world premiere, which is what we're hoping to do soon.
Yes, and I know that's a huge undertaking because it's a lot of resources and money to produce the season that you produce as it is, and you're always taking a risk of whether or not your audiences will buy tickets. So taking that extra risk to actually put a world premiere in front of your audience is a big step. Where are you on that pathway, and how are you thinking in terms of the future that you might be able to incorporate that into your pathway?
I have my fingers crossed. It would be my goal. I don't know if we'll achieve it or not. We have, not this next season, but the season following is our 10th anniversary. And so I would love to be able to incorporate a new work as a part of our 10th anniversary season. I just think it would be a really good time, for it. But yeah, we are, as we start to close our close our numbers, our board, it's always in a nonprofit, and especially this kind of situation, you get into discussions of, well, how did the numbers, come, so quickly? And not only was it audience attendance, and then our rental business picked up, and this and that and the other thing, but we didn't build any shows. And so that was a big part of the, the expenses just went down considerably because of that. And so
meaning that you rented all the shows of this last season as opposed to building them?
Correct, and or augmented or changed them a bit, or we acquired, we bought them and then hired a designer to kind of redesign, like with Joseph, we acquired the set and then redesigned it for our production. So just, but considerably cheaper to do that than to build, from the ground up. So.
And when you mention rentals, just to clarify, you also have built or acquired sets for various shows, and you have a large warehouse in Anaheim where you're able to store that and rent it out to other companies. And so that's a source of revenue to you that helps you keep going.
Exactly, and that's actually taken off, and it was that actually was our largest contributor to our numbers getting where they needed to go, which was just amazing. But it's been that's going to be the challenge, is to get our numbers, as in like bodies in the seats, to a point where it can, and or the season itself, like if you have a show like, a box office smash, like that's proven, like a Jersey Boys or a Mamma Mia or something like that, while a lot of the theater elite roll their eyes at those shows, you've gone away. Are you
no,
still
we're still there. Yes. You could.
Okay, hi. Like I said, like while the kind of theater goer like you and me might kind of roll our eyes at shows like that, they tend to sell out to the average, patron. So if you have a show or two like that in a season that can help cover the cost of a show, Invisible or a brand new show. Like, for example, we're trying that formula this next season, and this is hopefully going to be able to allow me to get into programming a new work. But we have $1 Million Quartet and Mamma Mia in a season with Parade, and we're bringing Parade back because we own the infrastructure to the show, and we actually going to be kind of getting rid of that package, and we wanted to do it one more time before we did. And so anyway, it would be interesting to see, because that was a show that everyone wished they had seen by the time it closed, but that nobody saw. And it did win us a bunch of Ovation Awards, and we had a great artistic success with it, but financially it was anything but. And so I
actually saw that production at over at the other venue in Redondo Beach. And I thought that was an absolutely, and I saw the Broadway production, or I saw it in Toronto before it went to Broadway, and I loved it then, but I thought your production was absolutely extraordinary. It was really quite incredible.
Thank you. It's something that we were very proud of, and so we're excited we get to remount that with the original cast, or most of them. And anyway, so we're gonna, hopefully it does better than it did before, but it certainly is not going to be a box office smash. So it's kind of a part of the strategic plan on finding out, like, if a show like Mamma Mia or a show like $1 Million Quartet, or combining those shows, can help pay for something like a new work, and that we don't financially suffer, because it is something, unless the new work has title recognition to it, I know there's a show specifically that's still in the works that I probably can't say the title to at this time, but that I know Elise and Scott are aware of, if it's a show that has that kind of title recognition to it, then it's less of a risk, obviously, which is why so many people are making shows out of movies and books and whatever. So but what I love about Invisible is much like the Drowsy Chaperone, which is the first that comes to memory of recent musicals that was kind of from nothing, and it was just this brilliant, beautiful night at the theater that was not based on anything that was that recognizable, and was so ingenious and inventive and creative, and that's well, a completely different show. Invisible is nothing like Drowsy Chaperone. It's really, it takes the concept of an old horror movie, and totally just runs with it in a completely different way. I think it's
Right.
something, would be really exciting to do. So.
We certainly wish you all the best of luck with that, because obviously we'd love to see a world premiere of Invisible as well, and so we'll cross our fingers and hope that comes along with your 10th anniversary, which is also an exciting time. TJ, we've been asking everybody that we've been interviewing a sort of a fantasy question. If you were to wake up tomorrow morning and someone were to hand you $100 million to use for the development of new musicals, how would you want to spend it?
Wow, that is an awesome question, and I hope that happens. I would honestly, I would use a good portion of that in trying to do similar things to what you're doing in, or like what Goodspeed does, where you have kind of a safe haven to have authors go and write, you know what I mean, and get paid to write, because so often, they're drowning in just trying to make ends meet and their own, lives, and just keeping up their day-to-day lives, that they don't have, the time and the strength, to get a product finished, do you know what I mean, and get it to where it really can get worked on and developed. And so having, that kind of opportunity for people, but then of course to see something go all the way, a show being able to go all the way to Broadway and use obviously chunk of that money for that. But I think that it's unfortunate that authors don't see enough money until much later in the process, generally, just because sometimes they get taken advantage of, because people know they just want the work to get produced, in hopes of money later and all that kind of stuff. So I just think it would be really nice to have a nice chunk of money for people to get creative and do what they do best. And I feel like people sometimes do their best work when they're not feeling that pressure from life, so.
Yes, well, that would be great. Well, assuming that you either get that $100 million or by other means you are able to be in a position in the future where you can regularly produce new works, I'd love to wrap up this interview by having you talk about what do you see as the future of musical theater, and what kind of advice would you give to the writers who are trying to create those musicals of tomorrow that you might want to produce at your theater?
It's an interesting question, because I feel like we're at a very interesting time right now where our industry is changing for, I think, the better. Hamilton really has done a huge thing for our industry in opening our minds up to diversity and how we tell a story, and taking limitations that have been just put on us from generations before off, and allowing us to think outside the box. I mean, that was like so beyond creative what they did with that, and the statements that they made within that piece, in specifically casting the way that they did, and yet still told that they told so many stories all at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Which is so amazing. And not to bring up something that now seems cliche, like Hamilton, but it is a very defining moment in our industry right now. So I don't know exactly what the future holds, other than I obviously none of us do, other than I hope it to be brighter, more inclusive, something that we're telling more important stories, and how to tell. Not to plug my own show again, but with Oklahoma, we're taking a show that essentially has been about farmers and cowmen fighting about territory, and made it about mental illness and racial tension and all of this other stuff that was actually all there, but never fully developed or realized because of either at the time it was things that people would have lost their lives over if they had produced it that way, quite literally, or it has just been something that people have grown accustomed to seeing a specific way. And so I think that just telling stories that are more important and challenging our audiences more often, as far as to writers, writing always obviously from your heart, and if you're writing from your heart and you're writing about something that is important to you and not necessarily what you think others are going to like or what you think that is going to be a hit. If you're trying to write a hit, you're not going to get it. You know what I mean? Like, it's the ones that come from your heart and so deep down in your soul that end up connecting with everyone, that others connect to it because they feel that passion and that energy within a piece. So just, keeping your head up and trying to help us all do better, helping community bring us work that helps us as artists reach out and make people think differently, talk about the show, not just in the parking lot, but all the way home, and then again on social media. And I think that's the kind of theater that I want to see, and that involves also having a good time and laughing, and comedies as well as TV dramas, but you can do all those things within any genre. So that's kind of my general thing.
Well, thank you, TJ. Thank you for everything that you do for Southern Californian musical theater, and everything that you will do in the future. We'll be watching and looking forward to it. So thank you so much for chatting with us today.
Thank you so very much for including
we appreciate
me.
it.
Thank you. Have a great festival.
Thanks. Bye-bye.